When you hear the name Iran on the nightly news in America, the images that flash across the screen are often those of protests, nuclear headlines, and a government in fierce opposition to the West. Yet, if you reach for the Bible on your shelf, the name Persia evokes a completely different aura. This is the land of wise kings like Cyrus, the brave Queen Esther, and the scholarly Magi who crossed the desert to worship the Christ child. How can one land possess two such different faces? The answer lies in a strange survival mechanism that perhaps no other nation on earth possesses. For over 5,000 years, the Iranian plateau has been trampled by almost every brutal empire in history. From the Macedonian phalanxes of Alexander the Great to the Arab armies fueled by a new religious fervor, to the Mongol hordes who left towers of skulls in their wake. However, instead of vanishing into the void of history like Babylon or Assyria, Iran did the unthinkable. It digested its conquerors through culture. The victors entered Iran as masters, but within a few generations, they spoke Persian, dressed in Persian silk, and ruled according to Persian administrative wisdom. We are about to explore the journey of a nation that turned military defeat into a strategy for eternal victory. This is not just the story of a country. It is a lesson in the power of cultural identity, a force that even the sharpest swords cannot sever. We will see how the Persian soul quietly protected God's plans throughout redemptive history, and how it continues to endure behind the rigid political exterior of modern-day Iran. To understand Iran, we must turn back the clock to a time before the modern concept of a nation even existed. In the southwest of present-day Iran, the civilization of Elam rose to power, standing shoulder to shoulder with Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. The Bible mentions Elam in the very opening chapters of Genesis 10:22, identifying them as descendants of Shem, the son of Noah. This places Iran at the very heart of the human map following the Great Flood. The capital of Elam was Susa, known as Shushan in the Bible. It was not merely a fortress of brick and stone. It was the birthplace of world diplomacy. In the 23rd century BC, a world-shaking event occurred. The first documented international treaty in human history was signed between King Naram Sin of Akkad and the state of Elam. This proves that thousands of years before Western concepts of international law were born, the people of this land already understood the power of the written word and formal commitment. However, the genetic and cultural blueprint of Iran truly took shape when Aryan tribes from Central Asia descended onto the plateau around 1500 BC. They brought with them Indo-European languages, the ancestors of English, Greek, and Latin. They called themselves Arya, meaning noble. The name Iran is a direct derivative of Aryanim Vayaja, the land of the Aryans. The fusion of Elam's ancient administrative foundations with the Aryan warrior spirit created a new breed of people. They didn't just build cities, they built a mindset. The mindset of a people destined to rule through grace, etiquette, and intellect rather than raw, mindless violence. When we read of Daniel or Nehemiah serving in the palaces of Susa, we are reading about people of faith working within the most sophisticated cradle of civilization in the ancient world. Long before the rise of Christianity or Islam, a religion emerged on the Iranian plateau that permanently altered how humanity perceives the universe. Zoroastrianism. Founded by the prophet Zoroaster, this faith did not view the world as a meaningless, repetitive cycle of nature, but as a literal battlefield between two absolute forces, Ahura Mazda, the god of light, truth, and order, and Ahriman, the spirit of darkness, deceit, and chaos. For those who love the Bible, this is profoundly significant. Before encountering the Persians, many ancient cultures believed time was a circle. Everything was born, died, and repeated indefinitely. But Zoroaster taught that time is a straight line. It has a beginning, creation, a struggle in the middle, and an inevitable end, Judgment Day. This is the very conceptual framework we see so clearly in Judaism and Christianity. The ideas of a Savior to come, the defeat of darkness, the resurrection of the dead, and an eternal paradise all found their first powerful echoes in Persia. Zoroastrianism was not just theory. It was a moral compass. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. For a Persian warrior, a lie was the most hideous of sins because deceit belonged to the kingdom of darkness. Great philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche later acknowledged that the Persians were the first to look the reality of evil in the face and choose to stand with the light. When the Jewish people were exiled to Babylon and subsequently liberated by the Persians, they found in their new masters a strange spiritual kinship. A shared belief in one God and the struggle against sin made Persia a natural protector for the nation of Israel in God's providential plan. In the entirety of the Bible, there is a very special title usually reserved for the kings of Israel or the Messiah himself. Yet God used it to describe a pagan king, my anointed, Mashiach. That king was Cyrus the Great. Why did a Persian emperor receive such a profound honor from Yahweh? Cyrus was unlike any conqueror before him. When the Assyrian or Babylonian emperors seized a land, they razed temples, forced mass deportations, and turned survivors into slaves. But when Cyrus entered Babylon in 539 BC, he did something that overturned all political norms. He issued a decree of liberation. The Cyrus Cylinder, now held in the British Museum, is considered the world's first charter of human rights. In it, he allowed exiled peoples to return to their homelands and freely worship their own God. For the Christian community, Cyrus is proof that God can use anyone, even those who do not know him, to fulfill his divine purpose. In the book of Ezra, we see that Cyrus not only permitted the Jews to return to Jerusalem, but also returned the gold vessels of the temple that Nebuchadnezzar had stolen, and provided the funding for the temple's reconstruction. Cyrus built his empire on a foundation of tolerance rather than fear. He understood that an empire is only as strong as the hearts of its subjects. Cyrus's political psychology turned Persia into the first humanitarian superpower, where religious difference was not a seed of rebellion, but a source of diverse strength. He laid the groundwork for an imperial model that Rome and Britain would later try to emulate, but rarely with the same level of genuine magnanimity. Under the successors of Cyrus, such as Darius the Great and Xerxes, the Achaemenid Empire became the world's first true global superpower, stretching from India to Greece and Egypt. With a population of nearly 50 million, comprising almost half of the Earth's inhabitants at the time, Persia established a flawless administrative system. Provinces, satrapies, connected by the royal road and the fastest postal service of the ancient world. But for readers of the Bible, this was the era where Persia acted as the glass case, protecting God's people during their most fragile stage. Think of Queen Esther. In the setting of ancient Susa, An orphaned Jewish girl became the queen of the greatest empire on earth. It was the Persian rule, despite the schemes of wicked officials like Haman, that provided the legal framework and order to ensure the Jewish people were not assimilated or destroyed. Or look at Nehemiah, the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. The absolute trust the Persian king placed in a Jewish man demonstrates a meritocracy that transcended ethnic prejudice. Without the stability and support of the Persian Empire, the Second Temple in Jerusalem might never have been completed, and the lineage leading to the Messiah might have been severed amidst the chaos of warring Middle Eastern tribes. The Persians created a Pax Persica, Persian peace, where trade, culture, and religion could flow freely. They didn't just build magnificent marble palaces at Persepolis. They built a system where even a small, exiled nation like Israel had a voice and protection. This serves as a testament to how God's providence often operates through the grandest political structures humanity has ever created. In 330 BC, Alexander the Great of Macedonia achieved the unthinkable. He overthrew the mighty Achaemenid Empire. In a fit of drunken revenge, Alexander burned Persepolis to the ground, the very symbol of Persian power. The world thought this was the end of 1,000 years of Iranian history. But in reality, this was when Iran's survival mechanism kicked into high gear. Shortly after conquering Persia, Alexander, the student of Aristotle, began to change. He shed his Greek cloak to wear Persian royal robes. He demanded his Greek soldiers perform the proskinesis, prostration, before him in the manner of Persian kings. At the mass wedding at Susa, he compelled thousands of his Greek officers to marry Persian noblewomen. Alexander didn't just want to rule their land. He was mesmerized by their beauty, their sophistication, and their administrative genius. He realized that to rule the world, he couldn't use the crude culture of his soldiers. He needed the soul of Persia. Though Alexander's empire fragmented after his death, the seeds of Persian culture had been scattered throughout the Hellenistic world. This influence was so deep that in the New Testament, the first people to seek out and worship the Christ child were not the priests of Jerusalem, but the Magi, Zoroastrian astrologers and priests from the East, Persia. The appearance of the Magi in the Gospel of Matthew is a beautiful symbol. The most ancient wisdom of Iran bowed before the true light of the world. Persia may have lost its military throne to the Greeks, but it won the battle for the minds of Western monarchs and sages for centuries to come. By the 7th century, a new earthquake struck. Arab armies under the banner of Islam defeated the Sassanid Empire. Unlike the Greeks, the Arabs brought a new religion and a new language. Many believed Iranian identity would be erased, just as it had been in Egypt or Libya, places that became entirely Arabized. But once again, the Persian miracle occurred. The Arabs had a powerful faith, but they lacked administrative experience and a scientific foundation. They entered Iran as conquerors, but they quickly found themselves relying on Persian bureaucrats, scholars, and physicians to run the empire. The period known as the Islamic Golden Age was, in fact, heavily branded with the mark of Persian intellect. Without Avicenna, Ibn Sina, considered the father of modern medicine, or Al-Khwarizmi, who laid the foundations for algebra and algorithms, our modern world would simply not exist. It was Persian scholars who translated Greek philosophical texts into Arabic, preserving them from destruction during Europe's Dark Ages. only to have that knowledge later pass back to the West, sparking the Renaissance. Even language was a battlefield. While other nations abandoned their mother tongues for Arabic, the Iranians stubbornly clung to Farsi. They adopted the Arabic script but infused it with the soul, grammar, and poetry of Persia. They transformed Islam from a religion of desert tribes into a brilliant global civilization. The Persians proved a fundamental truth. You can seize land with a sword, but you can only seize history with an intellect. The 13th century brought the harshest trial of all, the Mongols. Genghis Khan and his descendants swept through Iran like a whirlwind of destruction. Magnificent cities were leveled, libraries were torched, and irrigation systems that had functioned for a millennium were obliterated. Iran was like a butchered body, seemingly unable to ever stand again. But look at the wonder of the Persian cultural mistletoe strategy. Within 2 generations, the brutal descendants of Genghis Khan, who had lived in yurts and worshipped nature spirits, were kneeling before the beauty of Persian architecture and poetry. They no longer ruled Iran by the law of the steppe, but by Persian law and through the patronage of Persian arts. They built the exquisite blue-domed mosques in Isfahan and Tabriz. It was in the darkness of Mongol occupation that the Iranian spirit shone brightest through poetry. The poet Ferdowsi, with his masterpiece, the Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, became a mobile fortress. This epic recounted the glory of ancient Persian dynasties, reminding every Iranian that they were the children of noble kings, not the slaves of nomads. Through the verses of Rumi, Saadi, and Hafez, the Farsi language became so melodic and powerful that it became the court language from India to Turkey. The Mongols may have destroyed the houses, but they inadvertently became the builders of a new, more resilient Persian civilization. They learned to love what they had once sought to destroy. In 1501, a dramatic new chapter opened with the rise of the Safavid dynasty. Shah Ismail I made a decision that changed Middle Eastern geopolitics to this day. He declared Shia Islam the state religion of Iran. At that time, the vast majority of the Islamic world followed the Sunni branch, led by the mighty Ottoman Empire. Why did Iran choose this distinct path? This was not merely a theological debate about the succession of the Prophet Muhammad. It was a sophisticated survival strategy. By choosing Shi'ism, the Persians created a unique identity, a spiritual wall that separated them from the Turks and Arabs surrounding them. They wanted to tell the world, we are Muslim, but we are Iranian, and we are different. The choice of Shi'ism also gave Iran a religious structure that was hierarchical and emotionally profound, centered on the imagery of imams who suffered and fought for justice. This unintentionally created a strange resonance with the spirit of Christianity regarding sacrifice and redemption. The Safavid era transformed Iran into a unified, centralized, and wealthy nation, to the point where European ambassadors were stunned when they entered Isfahan, a city nicknamed Nesf-e-Jahan, half the world. The Safavid decision ensured that Iran would never be dissolved into the massive Sunni Islamic bloc, preserving the Persian self in a new religious form. In 1935, King Reza Shah Pahlavi sent a formal request to the world: stop calling his country Persia and start calling it Iran. To Westerners, this seemed like a simple administrative change, but behind it lay a deep desire for rebirth. Reza Shah wanted to erase the fairy tale image of a Persia associated with carpets and weak monarchs, replacing it with a modern, industrialized Iran that was proud of its noble Aryan roots. However, Iranian history is always a whirlwind of extremes. The Islamic Revolution of 1979 overthrew the monarchy and turned Iran into a clerical theocracy. The world once again learned to fear the name Iran. But if we look deeper beneath that political shell, we see the Persian soul still quietly at work. Young Iranians today still secretly read the poetry of Hafiz, still celebrate Nowruz, the ancient New Year dating back to Zoroastrian times, and still take more pride in Cyrus the Great than in their current political leaders. For those who love the Bible in America, the story of Iran should not be a story of fear, but one of hope. We are looking at a nation with an extraordinary capacity for self-healing and transformation. History has proven that no imposed political or religious system can hold the Persian soul captive for long. A nation that once liberated God's people and that once preserved the flame of intellect for all humanity will surely find its way back to the light. The struggle between modern Iran and classic Persia is, in truth, a process of refinement to find its true identity. As the linear time of Zoroaster taught, darkness is but a phase, and light ultimately triumphs. Iran is not just a country. It is an idea of cultural immortality, a testament that God still has a way of preserving what is most precious through the harsh currents of time.